Here we go.
Hi, guys. Welcome to Real Food Recovery. This is a podcast where we explore what it takes to heal from the effects of ultra processed food and reclaim health one choice at a time. Today, we're diving into a powerful conversation about how spirituality can reshape can I'm I'm full of I don't know, something in my mouth today, but we are diving into a powerful conversation about how spirituality can reshape recovery. Our guest, Darla Nelson, author of the book I'm Fine Really. That phrase is something so many of us have said when we were actually hurting inside. Darla shares her own journey of healing and how faith and spirituality helped her move from hiding pain to living in freedom. So I want to say hello to Jamie, and I will have her introduce Darlin. We'll learn a little bit more about her. How's it going, sister?
Doing good. Welcome to Darla Nelson today. Darla is the best-selling author of, as Paige mentioned, a book called I'm Fine Really. She's a Christian life coach, speaker, and healthy habits advocate who helps women and a few wise men move from stress and anxiety to peace and calm. Known as Uma to her grandchildren and blessed with 3 married children, Darla's favorite topics include power of the words we speak and the be, do, have concept, practical tools for creating a life of clarity, confidence, and purpose. We are thrilled to have you here. And Paige and I,
Thank
when
you.
we developed our branches of recovery, as we call them, for real food recovery, when we chose spirituality as one of those main core branches, because again, it's not about religion, but we knew
Right.
for us the power of having a spiritual connection to a power greater than ourselves, how valuable that was, critical, really. And we saw the difference in folks who had sustained periods of recovery
Right.
and or a change that they wanted to make in their lives, even goal attainment, how that spiritual practice that they had, whatever it looked like, so
Right.
to something greater than them, understanding and sort of surrendering to this power greater than them, what that gave them in their lives.
Mhm.
So we knew it was something we had to include in our core branches. And when Paige told me she found you as a potential guest, I loved it because there's so much, especially as women, that we cut ourselves off from our own spiritual availability, spiritual practices, spiritual, acceptance. There's so much of our spiritual lives that we cut off of ourselves when we shove down, push down, use food to cover whatever.
Right.
Um, and I think that that's what a lot of what you're here to talk about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to both of you for having me on your call and on your podcast. And I feel honored to be here. I know that I've got to speak a little bit with Paige before, and we seem to really connect, and it was a great time together. So, yes, I just love that when you talk about spirituality, and as we mentioned before, that's different for everybody. And yet it can be so helpful in our journey, even with food and how we look at food and how it affects our life and how it affects our health and our mindset and all the things, right?
hmm Yeah, and I love how your book is called I'm Fine Really. I mean, haven't all of us said that? How are you? I'm fine. Fine. Good.
Right.
Good.
Yes.
So that phrase is something so many people in recovery say when they're really struggling inside. I mean, it's just a natural impulse to say that you don't want to cause any problems, so you're just going to
Right.
say fine. So I want to hear from you what it means to you. And obviously, this must have come from somewhere in your background. That didn't come from nowhere, is what I'm guessing. So you want to talk about
Right.
how you came to that title and what has happened in your life to bring us to this
Right.
point right now?
That title, I'm fine. It as you can know by the look of the front of the book, and I'll just show it here.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like one of you is saying I'm fine, and your friend is like, really?
Oh, okay. I
Mhm.
misinterpreted that
Thank
because,
you. Yeah.
but haven't you heard people say, really, I'm fine.
Yes, yes. And it can go both ways, Paige.
Hmm.
Absolutely. This was coming, my idea for the front cover was really coming from how often do we say, oh, I'm fine. And your friends are like, they know better, your family knows better, you know better. And so your friends are like, they might not say it, but they're like, really? I don't know. And so back to your question, how did this journey shape me and where the title came from? So much of it came from personal experience. And so one thing that came up for me when I was thinking about your show is that in 2008, 2010, I was hurting all over. Stress, the economy was crashing. And I remember one time I was standing in the shower and my whole left side was numb. And I had had all these tests done, everything imaginable that you could think of. And fortunately, most of the tests came back negative, which was a good thing. But still, I wasn't feeling good. And I did have one doctor say to me that she used the words, "Well, I think you might have rheumatoid arthritis." And so here I am, I'm standing in the shower, my left side's numb, it's tingling, my face is, literally twitching. And I'm like, something isn't right. If all these tests say that they're fine, which I'm glad about, then why do I feel this way? And I knew that it was stress, and I knew that I could help my stress by how I was living. What was my lifestyle like? What was I eating, drinking, thinking, moving, all the things, right? And so it's just amazing when you realize, for anybody listening, if you can realize that often how our body is feeling is our body's actually talking to us. It's like going, wake up, Darla, like you're not feeling well and there's a reason for it. And I'm glad that I got that wake up call. And to end that part of that story is that I was at the doctor that day. I was at a rheumatoid specialist right away, handed me a prescription for medication. And I'm not a doctor. I'm not here to say no doctors, right? Because I believe there's a place for that, absolutely. And yet at the same time, at that moment in my life, I handed it right back to her. And I said, you know what, I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go do some different things in my life to change how I feel. And I did. I started eating differently. I got rid of processed foods in my home. I got rid of sodas. I started drinking water. My water's always right here by me. And I started walking a lot and I started thinking more positively and I never had to go back. So I feel great.
It's amazing how when we're on the topic of I'm fine, it's when you don't know answers that does not help
Mhm.
with I'm fine. And don't you feel like whenever you can find some answers, especially to health problems, that helps not only us be fine, but it does help connect back into that spiritual component because it's difficult to feel that spiritual the feels when your
Mhm.
mind is swirling around with what's
Oh,
going on with me and I don't have answers and it's real distracting from that peace
mhm.
component that we're searching for.
Right. Right. There's so many unknowns. And so how many times, I'm sure you ladies can attest to this too, have you like laid in bed at night in the middle of the night and you think that there might be something wrong, but you're not sure. The doctors haven't confirmed anything. And so this whole swirling of the mind, right? It's just confusion and anxiety and stress come over us because we're not sure. And for me, that from the spirituality perspective, where that comes in is just giving those cares away. Like, I can't do this on my own. I need help from my higher power, right? To be able to let go of some of that. And it does. And like, please let me go to sleep, right?
Sometimes I pray for that. Just knock me out.
Yeah, knock me out, please. I just want to sleep for sure.
Mm.
Absolutely. Thank you
Um,
so much.
one of the, Paige, you mentioned the um not knowing, right? Not having answers, not having all the information that you need to sort of feel at peace.
Mhm.
And I think that, for me, that's been a huge area of growth that I've had to, kind of surrender into, right? Because I wasn't able to do anything to change that for me. I had to just keep surrendering into it. And then eventually,
Mhm.
my power that I call God, kind of helped me mature spiritually. So I was able to be okay in not knowing, with not
Right.
knowing. And
Right.
that I'm certainly not an expert by any means, but I've just started to tap into that. So I guess, Darla, what can you say about this? For folks who are living in limbo on whether it's a medical diagnosis or major life change or wanting to do something different for their lives or for their
Mhm.
recovery, and they don't have the answers they need, and they don't or they have the answers but they don't really want to accept them, right? Which could be
Mm.
part of it, and
Right.
that's many folks we work with. I know I've gone through phases of that too. um how do you counsel folks on how to sort of be okay with not being okay?
Yeah, for sure. What comes to mind when you're saying that, Jamie, is that trust and control cannot coexist.
That's
That's one
right.
of my favorite sayings, and I share with all my clients all the time because why can I share it? Because I had to learn it the hard way. And
Yeah.
I went through some difficult experiences in life, as we all do. And I remember wanting to control the situation. I wanted the outcome to be what I wanted it to be, not what it could potentially be. How many times, honestly, are the outcomes exactly what we expect? Pretty much never. And so, just that feeling of, okay, Lord, in my case, my God, like you mentioned, like just that ability to say, I'm going to give these cares away. And so, trusting, that's the hardest part, like trusting, because I want to control it. My personality is like, I'm going to fix this, I'm going to do what I need to do. And in essence, control the situation. When in reality, I just sometimes need to step back. For me, in my case, I like to pray, um, journal is really good for me. Put down my thoughts in a journal, allow myself to let it go from my brain, onto paper as a sense of release right there. And then just wait and be still and wait for the answer. That's really
Yes.
helped me a lot.
Yes, I love that. And that's the whole idea of surrendering. And because for what I've learned, had to learn, and in some of the transitions I've had to deal with lately, it's there's there's people, places, and situations totally out of my control. And
Mhm.
many of the actions or outcomes that happen around me with others are things I wouldn't choose, things I don't
Mhm.
understand. And I have to my work is not in critiquing that or perseverating on that or trying to
Right.
figure out a different way that they could have done something or the resentment I have because of it. It's is accepting it, accepting what is, right? Instead of fighting against it.
Right.
And that brings it's not easy, believe me, but it's the only way that I have found to
Mhm.
ever be okay with all the things that I can't control. And because any other time that I try to um fight against what is, man, I'm miserable. I just,
Mhm.
pain, what is the saying? Pain is not an option, but suffering is optional,
Hmm.
Mhm.
right? Pain is
That's
life
oh, I
is
love that.
in
I
life
love
is
that you brought
guaranteed,
that
but
up.
suffering isn't. Suffering is what we do to ourselves, the story we tell ourselves because of the pain.
That
Hmm.
reminds me, actually, Jamie, I was on a call earlier with a client, and some of the things that this person was struggling with was some things from her past and how she was raised. It actually was around the concept of money. And so she was kind of frustrated with how she was not trained in a lot of areas around money. And so whether it's money or it's how to eat or whatever the thing is that you feel you weren't taught as a child, we can either stay stuck there and blame and shame, or we can make a conscious choice that I'm aware. I'm aware that maybe what I was taught wasn't what I want to do moving forward. And
Mhm.
yet, instead of staying stuck, I'm going to be grateful that I'm now in a place of recognizing that no, I don't want to take that forward. I don't want to teach my children, grandchildren, future generations the things that I wasn't taught, but instead I'm going to move forward and I'm going to teach them. And by the time we got off the call, she was like, wow, that makes so much sense because there's no need or it's not necessary to blame and shame. And one of the things I did share there today, I remember learning this myself, like back in 2017, when one of my trainers for life coaching said to me that we are 100% responsible for our response to life,
Mhm.
Hmm.
even in the midst of the really hard stuff. Like some people have really hard things happen to them, and they're like, wait a second, you mean I'm supposed to be 100% responsible for that? And it's not that, I mean, we're talking some people's trauma and things that they've experienced is horrible.
Mhm.
And yet when they say instead, I'm going to be 100% responsible for my response moving forward.
Yep.
And that can change everything for them.
Yeah. It's like a whole idea of, I learned this a couple years ago only, and it's been so helpful whenever I'm feeling like I want to condemn myself
Mm,
or even condemn others, right, for their choices, or condemn myself for some of the choices I've made or some of the thoughts I've had or the false beliefs that I've carried forward, because that's what you're kind of talking about, false beliefs in those
right,
some of
right.
those old tapes. And I was given the advice that, you use the condemnation as sort of rocket fuel for conviction. Turn the
I like that.
condemnation that we feel into conviction. And when I can remember to do that, and again,
Mhm.
I'm a lesson in progress, but when I can remember to do that, man, it really is. It's like, oh, let me use this shame for something good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because we were never meant to carry shame forward.
No.
We really weren't. That wasn't the intention, right? And yet so often we do. And often with that higher power again, for me being God, through gratitude and prayer, I can take that guilt and I can I can't even talk there. I can either let it be just holding on to me like glue almost, or I can let it be released and move forward.
Beautiful.
I love what you guys were talking about. I'm a math person, so I love like
Mhm.
balanced equations and things like that. And I was writing down some notes as you guys were talking, and I just wrote out this little math equation that response to life equals trust, surrender, acceptance. And I think trust, surrender, acceptance all equal spirituality. So
Mm,
if you're seeking for spirituality, it seems like where you might start is your response to life. And those responses, if they fall under those categories of trust, surrender, and accept, you're going to get a lot closer to having that inner
mm,
peace and calm, which then allows you to tap into that spirituality place that, especially those of us, for our audience that are listening, most of them are recovering from the effects of ultra processed food use disorder. And so, do you want to talk a little bit about how you see spirituality playing a role in breaking free from those addictive patterns from food? If you have any background in that area, if you want to share any personal examples with that, feel free.
yeah, for sure. As far as like when I think about addictive behaviors around food for myself and how it was even affecting my own health, whether it was spiritually, mentally, or physically, I had to learn to really ask for help around those things. And when I think about certain foods that I would turn to, I don't know why I'm coming up with like a whole sleeve of Ritz crackers. I don't know why I'm thinking of that. But when I think of that, it was no big deal to just grab a whole sleeve. I don't know if you ladies have ever done that before. Like, let's not just have one cracker. Let's eat the entire thing, right?
I'm just going to stop you and say, in when you're dealing with people suffering from ultra processed food use disorder, we measure in sleeves and gallons and half gallons and liters, things like
Well, I didn't even
that.
know that. Look at there.
I'm making that up. I mean, I just made that
Oh,
up,
okay.
but
That's funny. I actually talk about that crazy sleeve of Ritz crackers in my book because, whether it's crackers or anything else processed, I so often would turn to those because it was almost like this comfort food, right?
of course.
Of course, it's where what are we hiding from? I remember feeling that way a lot too. Like, why am I turning to food as my source of joy and satisfaction versus
Mhm.
going on a walk, or to answer your question from a spiritual perspective, doing things that are going to allow me to not turn to the foods as much, right? And instead begin to crave the foods that are from the earth. And that today I was thinking about this call and I was thinking about the four corners of the grocery store, right? The places that we go to that have the fresh produce and the good foods versus all the box foods in the center of the store.
Mhm.
For me, it's just getting out there and finding the things that bring us joy. whether
Mhm.
it's taking a walk, reading a good book, taking a nap, like Paige and I talked about, like
Mhm.
those are the things that can
Mhm.
really help us move past that.
Mhm.
And there's nothing that breaks that spiritual connection to whatever your higher source is than a binge. I mean, it is very
Mhm.
difficult to tap into a spiritual place when you're just so flooded with emotion. And we talked about
Mm,
shame a little bit too, and guilt, and you feel like you've let yourself down, and just all of those different things. It's just it's makes it harder to tap into that place. So uh, for me, when I am working with trying to recover in this journey, I talk about how peace and calm is like my number one, to have this calm
mhm.
brain, because it allows me to connect with my higher power and also get that extra layer of support and connection that I feel like I need every day, all day on this journey. So that's that's my 2 cents on it.
Absolutely. And then I'm
Mhm.
sure you both have experienced the importance. This just came up for me right now, like this importance of who do we surround ourselves with, right?
Mhm.
Like that really helps us, even if we're just talking about the subject of food.
Hmm.
I've noticed that so much. Like if I'm around my friends that are encouraging walking, encouraging mindset growth, encouraging me to get out and drink my water and eat well and all the things. If they're doing that, there's a better chance that I'm going to do it as well. Versus if I'm associating with people that don't have that feeling of wanting to eat healthy, we kind of sometimes can become who we hang out with, and
Totally.
Totally. We talk
it's
about
so
that
important.
so much with our members and on this podcast and other platforms about you're the most like the 5 people
Right,
closest
right.
to you. And if your goal is spirituality, or if your goal is health, or if your goal is to be a dancer, or whatever
Mhm.
your goal is, yeah, finding those like-minded people will only elevate
Huge.
those desires. I agree completely.
Right.
Yeah, I recently moved into a different um setting, and it was, I was living in sort of apartment living for the first time in a while. And I was met with all these, new people, new neighbors, new people that I
Mhm.
was kind of having to discern very quickly. As friendly and accommodating as the people were, my new neighbors were trying to be, and welcoming, I had to discern very quickly who I wanted to have in my inner circle and who I didn't. And when I say inner circle, I mean giving them access to come into my home.
Right.
That's sort of baseline, right? Do I want to have this person in my home, allow them to get to know me, get me to spend my time getting to know them. And there was maybe one person in my new neighborhood that I really thought, okay, yeah, I'd love to get to know her, and that's a great, she seems like a iron sharpens iron kind of person.
Mhm.
But a lot of the other folks, they were lovely, kind people, but I had to be very clear about, keeping a boundary of,
Boundaries.
you know, uh, thanks, no thanks, or sorry, I'm busy, or because it was very clear that, there was a couple of folks that just wanted to, sort of show up and dump all of their woes onto me, and oh, my husband this, and oh, my daughter that, and oh, and I'm like, I have got some things going on in my life. I cannot take on anyone else's stuff right now. And so I kept a very firm bound. I was always, firm, but and tried to be as pleasant as possible when saying no thank you. But there was one or two folks in this little apartment life that I had to be very firm with, and just keep saying no thank you, no thank you, no thank you, because I knew they would come in, to my life, and be a negative influence without trying to be, right? And they're not
Yeah.
bad
Right.
people, but they're just not my people. And they
I love that
certainly were
you
not the people I needed in this phase of my life.
I love that you mentioned boundaries, and
Mhm.
I'm sure you ladies have probably heard of the book called Boundaries.
Yes. Life
And
changing.
yes, and it is life changing. I usually it's right behind me on my shelf here, but I just lent it out to a neighbor recently.
Mhm.
And my favorite chapter, if you can remember the chapter, is the boundary around yourself.
Yes.
Because we are really good, all of us are really good at having advice and things that we want to share with everybody else. But how are we with ourselves? And we have to be do it first leaders. We have to be, whether it's in the food space or whatever space we're in, we have to be do it first leaders. And if I'm over here drinking my water and telling you to drink my water, but then I'm over there having, a Pepsi or, whatever, then am I living into who am I supposed to be? And I'm so grateful that my higher power has helped me to see, my God has helped me to see that I want to be a do it first leader and be an example of what does health and wellness look like to me.
I
Absolutely.
love that. We are careful. You're one of the first speakers we've had on to talk about that topic of spirituality, and shame on me for uh, trying to be maybe a little overly cautious, but spirituality can be a polarizing topic. And so we always try to be very,
Yes,
very careful when we mention spirituality to not make people think that we're trying to shove religion down anybody's throat,
absolutely.
because a lot of people have come from traumatic pasts with that. And the
Mhm.
idea of that may be a turnoff, or they've had some trauma around in their young years with that. So for people, not everybody identifies with organized religion. So,
Right.
can you talk? I want to make sure we get to this about how spirituality can be a safe, comfortable, loving, wonderful support, a powerful part of their recovery journey in finding this freedom, and not panic about when
Mm,
the S word comes up of spirituality. How do how do you get people that have had a bad experience to not be turned off by it or fearful of it? How
right.
can they welcome that it really can be a very, I'm going to say, essential part of this journey?
Yes, I love what you mentioned about being an essential part. And for me, when I am sharing with clients or potential clients, and I go back to another call I had today where someone recently, they're just on their journey. They're on their spiritual journey. And so for them, their journey looks very different than what mine looks like. And that doesn't mean theirs is wrong or mine's right. It's just where we are on the journey. And so if I could share with anyone, like instead of being afraid of that, just being open to it, it makes me think of
Mm-hmm.
just kind of like opening your arms, like letting go, right? Letting go of what you've thought all along, maybe any concerns you've had in the past, and knowing that your journey isn't going to happen overnight. None of ours are. I mean, it's a
Mm-hmm.
continuous journey. How I feel today versus how I felt 5 years ago, even in my own spiritual journey, is very different.
Yes.
And yet, every part of it matters. Every part. I like to
Mm-hmm.
think of our life as in chapters. And I remember when my kids were young, teenagers, my boys are now 33 and 35, but I remember when they were young and they're going through all the things of life, right? And they would go, "Oh, why is this happening to me? And how come I'm not understanding that?" And all the different things. And I remind them that every chapter matters, even spiritually.
Mm-hmm.
And that if let's say we're on chapter 14, if we're on chapter 14 and there's no 13, then 14 doesn't make sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so we need to be willing for all the chapters, even the hard things, as we
Mm-hmm.
go on this spiritual journey, and just be open to opportunity. If someone listening, if prayer's your thing, then pray. If it's not, maybe for you it's getting out in nature,
Mm-hmm.
taking a walk, looking at the beauty of the creation, right? Seeing the leaves falling, the flowers blooming, all the things. And maybe for them that's the beginning. And when people start seeing that little by little, feet in the sand, something as simple as that
Mm-hmm.
could really be life changing for them.
Do you have a definition of spirituality? I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about all the
Hmm,
different things that you've said, and is it introspection? Is it
definition.
questioning? Is it peace seeking? I was just thinking about all the different ways that people can attain that. And by the way, I do think it's become more of an importance in my life as I've gotten older,
Hmm.
but um, and I don't know if that's typical or not. But anyway, yeah, that was
I don't know
something.
if I have a definition for spirituality per se, yet it's going to be, like I mentioned, different for everybody in their journey. I have a really, really good friend. We've been friends for 35 years. And her idea of spiritualism is nature, being out in
Mm-hmm.
nature. Her and I love nature as well. And yet my version of spirituality is very different than hers.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't mean that I'm right, she's wrong. It just means it's different. And so then we can get together and have a wonderful conversation about life, about the journey, about the chapters of life. And we can still have connection and we can still have peace and
That's it.
calm together. It's
Connection. Yeah.
respect, really.
Yes. And don't you think that's what drums up the fear so much that if I say something about what I think is spiritual, I'm going to be shut down or condemned but
Hmm.
if we're able to keep that line of communication open of what spirituality means to each person and be respectful,
Hmm.
then you've got a breeding ground for communication and connection and love and peace and all the
Yes,
yummy stuff that
yes.
comes from being connected to another human who's seeking peace as well. I love
And
that.
it comes to conversation, asking questions. So
Hmm.
often we're in communication with other people, or we think we're in communication with other people, and we're
Hmm.
really not. And yet, if we just ask questions, say, why do you do this? Or why, and instead say, share with me your perspective on
Hmm.
that. And maybe we
Hmm.
find out that a lot of what people do or don't do is because that's how they were raised and they don't know any different.
Hmm.
Another thing I often talk about is that we make our decisions on every area of our life based on the information that we have. And the only way to make a new decision is to get new information.
Hmm.
And so as life progresses, you mentioned getting older and feeling more of a need for spirituality in your life.
Hmm.
I think that's pretty common,
Yeah, I
right?
think so. I think so.
Because we're getting near to our older ages, right? We are. I think I'm much older than Jamie. I can't tell so much, but I think I am.
She's young.
She's young, yeah. And so, and yet every chapter matters. And you've got my client today, she's in her 30s, right? And she's feeling a need more than she's ever felt. And a lot of that's going to come from what's going on in the world today
Mhm.
and helping them to see that they can also know peace and joy because it all begins with an acknowledgement in their own heart that maybe they don't have peace, they don't have joy. Maybe they're experiencing lots of anxiety and confusion and frustration and not know uncertainty, not knowing what's happening in the future. And so it makes them really stressed and anxious. And I want to tell people that they don't have to live in that state. It's a choice. I don't know if you can see the sign behind me. Choose joy.
Shoot. Hmm.
It's a choice.
Mhm. I
Yeah,
don't think
go
there's
ahead.
a lot of
Sorry.
people that do know what that really feels like. What joy and peace actually feel like. I think there's a lot of people that grew up or was modeled for them, to choose other negative emotions or to look at life in a negative way, and they had no idea what that really could be like to have peace and joy instead of despair and fear.
Right, right. So much of our life is how we were taught.
Mhm.
And once again, we get to choose if we're going to stay there or not.
Yes,
Hopefully
exactly.
not. Hopefully we choose to move forward.
What do you think when you wrote the book, and the book title I think is so important to kind of parse out, right? It's two different ways of kind of looking at it. I'm fine, really, like, really I'm okay, but
Hmm.
if someone's slowly twitching in the corner, or someone is saying, no, I'm fine. And then somebody who maybe loves or someone that they're close to says, really, are you, come on, are you kidding yourself? And I've met many people that are like, no, really, everything's fine. And I'm looking at them like, how is everything fine? But it's not up to me to
Right.
tell differently. How does this, the latter, right? Where you're talking to someone and you can see they're not fine, but they really truly say they're fine. And you know that you have the kind of love and connection with them to actually say, really, are you really fine?
Mm-hmm.
What is that? How does that connect from your perspective to a spiritual journey?
I just want people to really know that I am truly here to love and care for them in exactly the place that they're in, with no pointing fingers. I want people to know on their spiritual journey that I'm coming from a place of complete love. Like, and so it doesn't matter what your past looks like. It could be the most horrendous past. And yet we don't need to stay there. We can just move forward with love and care and guidance together. And that's where those asking questions come from. Even when I'm being in a coaching session, just coaching people from like letting them know so that when they get off that session with me, they know that Darla Nelson absolutely cares for me. It doesn't matter what I did in the past because it doesn't with any of us, right? It doesn't matter. We've all made mistakes in life, lots of them, some worse than others. But who's counting? We shouldn't be counting. And when we just let people know that we are there for them, even if it just means to be still and listen. Actually, we should listen more than we talk. Yeah,
Very,
absolutely.
very helpful.
For people that maybe are willing to start leaning into a spiritual life, a spiritual discovery,
Mhm.
maybe is a better word. Where would someone like that start where spirituality has always been, I'm not going there? For anyone that's listening that might be willing to start leaning into that in a safe way, where would they start that wouldn't be overwhelming or scary or pressured or
Pressure. I think we live in a society that we're just constantly going. We're just almost like that hamster wheel, right? And so a place to start would be to allow yourself a space of calmness,
Mhm.
stillness. If that means maybe you're a busy mom, you've got a lot going on in your life, and it allows you to just get up 5 minutes earlier. And then maybe you're still in bed even. For me, what I do is I like to get up and go sit on the left side of my couch. For some reason, I always sit on the same side, and it's by it happens to be by my journal and the light and all the things. But I just sit there, and sometimes I have a light on, sometimes I don't. Sometimes it's in the darkness, and just being quiet
and listen?
and listen for whatever is going to come up.
I love that.
And maybe ask questions to, in my case, to my God, but if someone else listening, it could be to their higher power, like asking, what is it that I should be learning today? What should I be feeling today?
Mhm.
Or why am I feeling that, this way or another way? And when we ask the questions, what I love about neuroplasticity is that our brains were created to
Yes.
answer the question. So if we're in that 5 minute stillness and we're asking the question, like, why am I able to make healthy food choices today? Because we want to ask questions that are going to make our brain flip the switch, as I like to say. We ask the positive question, why am I able to make a healthy food choice today?
Instead of why can't I?
Instead of why can't I? Or
Mhm.
instead of why do I suck at this? Right? I'm just going to say it. Like if we say that, then if we say the negative question, then our
Yeah.
brain automatically starts answering it. Well, you're a
Right.
loser. You bought too many of this and you shouldn't have this in your kitchen and yada, yada, right? Where instead, if we say, why am I making healthy food choices today? Then our
Mhm.
brain's like, okay, well, I'm getting better at, shopping the four corners of the grocery store, the four sides of the store, and I'm bringing more fruits and vegetables into my life, and I'm drinking more water. And so our brain flips. It literally does. It wants to
Mhm.
answer the question.
Mhm. I
And when we
love
do
that.
that, I'm trying to remember what we talked about earlier about it was something that Jamie mentioned, and it's not coming to me right now. When we start getting a good result, we want the result.
Mm-hmm.
again and again and again
Yep.
and again.
Mm-hmm.
And so it takes time. Like, were vegetables always my favorite thing in the whole world? No, but now I actually crave them
Mm.
because
Yeah.
I have eaten and I've created, enough good recipes and all the things. And that goes with even s- drinking water. I'll have someone tell me, there's a whole section in my book in the back where it talks about healthy habits. And one of the habits is the habit of drinking water. And
Mm-hmm.
people go, "Oh, I hate water." Well, whatever we say, energy begets energy. What we
Mm-hmm.
put out there comes back to us. So if we keep saying, "I hate water, I hate water, I hate water," guess what? We're going
Mm-hmm.
to hate water. But if we start like adding a cucumber, adding a lemon, drink it little by little, eventually you're like, "Wow, this is pretty good. I feel better. I have more energy. My skin looks better." All the things. And then we want more of that. So we keep drinking the water.
Yeah,
I
I
hope that
love
answers.
how we focus on controlling our thoughts and our thoughts control our emotions. So we know if we can control what we're thinking, then that, drags those emotions. They start to catch up. So yeah, it's that identity shift work like you're talking about with the
Mhm.
neuroplasticity. I love how, we're naturally as
You have.
humans wired to the negative because we need to be in survival. But because of neuroplasticity, we can
Mhm.
rewire ourselves to the
Yes.
positive and start saying, I love cucumber water. I love cucumber water. And pretty soon you've got cucumbers growing in your backyard. So
I
yeah.
Well,
haven't tried that yet, Paige. Maybe I should try it. Maybe I'll get cucumbers in my backyard.
there's no, and I think the best thing that that I can share with anyone that I work with, and when I'm, leading any of our check-in sessions, it's really all about, there's nobody that's going to come and do this for you. Nobody
Mhm.
is going to come, and we're the ones we've been waiting for.
Yeah.
And I shared that with one of our members on one of our sessions a few weeks ago, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, and she was like, "Oh my God, I've never heard that before, but it's true." I was like, "Yeah." Like, we think that there's going to be someone else, another human that's going to come and do these things for us.
Mhm.
There isn't. There isn't. And the sooner that you
Mhm.
can realize that, the better you'll be to look, stop looking to other humans to do these things for you. But I think in order for you to be able to step up for yourself, that's where the spiritual strength and spiritual connection comes in to give
Right.
you the presence of mind and the power and the grace to be able to do those things for yourself.
Right.
When I've asked, God for help to do something that I never thought I could do myself, there I am doing it, right? And
Mhm.
every time. And I was even talking to a couple of folks that I met last week at a Bible study, and I I was sharing something that I had learned that week, and somebody said, "Oh, you have a lot of strength," and I said, "Oh, it's not me, it's God." And I thought, who is that answering that question? Like, normally I would have been like, "Yeah, I do. I'm pretty strong," but like now, like
Good
I
for you.
I don't think. I don't think that I would have half the strength that I have, right? If it wasn't for
Mhm.
God always giving me that strength. So, and I think that just again is the when I think about what sets apart, someone who maybe is very inspiring in recovery to me or inspiring in life to me.
Mhm.
It's, that's that spiritual maturity. It's that they
Right.
can do it all themselves and they know that they have done it all themselves and they know they can't,
Mhm.
right?
Hmm.
They've tried it all themselves and they know they can't.
That didn't work.
And then they're like, oh, okay. Like then they're in a place of surrender. Then they're in a place of connection. Then they're in a place of acceptance. And that's when, like, all of a sudden their life, I think, catapults forward because they start getting answers and they start getting clarity they didn't have before when they were relying on their own
There's
energy.
so much power in letting go and recognizing that we cannot do it on our own.
Yes.
We just can't.
No,
Yeah.
And we might try, like you said, we might try,
we weren't. No.
but it's not
Yeah.
lasting for sure.
Yeah. That's the beautiful part of why we specifically included spirituality in our recovery program. And I love what Jamie said is that's one thing nobody else can do for you. That spirituality piece has to be done by
Mhm.
yourself.
Yes.
So love it. Gosh, thank you so much. This was a wonderful conversation. It went way too fast. We could talk for another couple hours. I love this topic.
We could.
So if you want to find out more about us, you can find us at realfoodrecoveryforyou.com. That's the number 4 and the letter U. And our book is out on Amazon, Real Food Recovery. If food isn't the answer, what's the question? And Darla's book will be in our show notes, so you can find her references there. And she has been a great resource for us on this gentle topic. So really, really appreciate you being here.
Thank you so much. What a pleasure. I hope I get to meet you ladies in person one day.
Oh, that'd be
Thank you,
awesome.
Darla.
Have a
Thank you
good
so
rest of your
much.
day. Thanks,
Thank
guys. See
you.
you next time.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.